Pokemon has been around for over 20 years now, and whilst we are always excited for the release of brand new games that we can play, we sometimes forget about how it all began, and that was with Pokemon Red and Pokemon Blue. However, being the first set of Pokemon games, there were a ton of mistakes in the games. With that being said, today's video takes a look at 15 huge mistakes in Pokemon Red and Blue. Don't hesitate to drop a comment down below about the video and if you found it interesting or not. Don't forget to leave a like on this video too to show your support, and I'll be sure to bring out a new video very shortly. Make sure to subscribe if you haven't already to keep up to date, and follow my Twitter to hear updates about the channel. Now, without further ado, let's get into the video, and I really hope that you enjoy. Okay, so the first mistake in today's video is that Charizard couldn't learn Fly. It's a fire flying type Pokemon, it looks like a dragon, why can't it learn Fly? The best thing is though, Pokemon like Pidgey can, so you'd be like, fine, I'll just grab this 0.4 inches tall Pidgey and fly on its back to Cinnabar Island, whereas my fire breathing dragon can't fly me anywhere. It's just the weirdest thing, and it was super annoying because I always chose Charmander and I was like, okay, yeah, Charizard will be able to fly me around, but then I'd have to get another flying type just so I could transport around the world easy. It was so stupid. The second mistake in Pokemon Red and Blue was that technically ghost types were weak to ground type attacks, and that was because there was only one ghost line in Gen 1, which was obviously the Ghastly family, so you had Ghastly, Haunter and Gengar, and since they were all part poison type with no levitate ability yet introduced into the games, ground moves hit for super effective damage, which is quite funny if you think about it, because Ghost isn't weak to ground at all, because most of them do have levitate, so it's just funny that ground was actually super effective against ghosts in Gen 1. The third big mistake in Pokemon Red and Blue was that Struggle was a normal type move, so it couldn't hit ghost types. So that means if you were in with a Pokemon that only had Struggle left and you were against like a Gengar, you wouldn't be able to touch it, so it'd just be like a stalemate really. Coming up next is Karate Chop was a normal move too, which made absolutely no sense. Fighting type Pokemon were actually in Pokemon Generation 1, since you had like the Machop line, you had Hitmonlee, Hitmonchan, you had a bunch of fighting type moves, a bunch of fighting type Pokemon, so why wasn't Karate Chop, which is clearly a fighting type move, not a fighting type move in Gen 1? It was just so silly, and that was definitely one of the biggest mistakes in Generation 1. The next big mistake for today's video is that Dragon was obviously supposed to be weak against itself, because Dragon is super effective against Dragon, except that there was only one Dragon type move in Pokemon Red and Blue that did no scaling damage, which was Dragon Rage. So it was kind of pointless really, because the only thing that was super effective against Dragons bar Ice types moves were Dragon moves, and the only Dragon type move in the game was Dragon Rage, which always did 40 HP, so it was kind of just a silly thing to implement if you think about it. The next mistake in Pokemon Red and Blue was that you could actually miss when you threw Pokeballs. So even if you put something to sleep and it was on red health, so it was barely able to fight, you could still miss Pokeballs, and it was so annoying. It usually happened with legendary Pokemon. Obviously, I can see why they did it, to make it a bit more difficult to catch legendary Pokemon, but usually when you threw the Pokeball and it landed, you had a very high chance of catching it. So I don't really know why they did really implement the whole missing Pokeball thing, especially like I say when it was asleep and very unable to battle because it had red health. I don't know, it was just another silly thing that they did implement into Pokemon Red and Blue. So the next big mistake in Pokemon Red and Blue is similar to the Charizard not being able to learn Fly that we've already gone over, and it was that Lickitung couldn't learn Lick. Now, I don't even have to explain why that's so silly, but I will anyway, because Lickitung has a tongue. It's even in its name pretty much, and the tongue is pretty much as big as its body, so why wouldn't that be used as one of its, like, I don't know, like ways of attacking something? Lick was in the Generation 1 games, because Ghastly could learn it, who had a tongue, which was nowhere near as big as Lickitung's tongue, so why couldn't Lickitung learn Lick? It was so silly. It was just an obvious thing that they should have included, but because there were so many mistakes and things in Pokemon Red and Blue, that's why it kind of just skipped the line, and the people that made it were just like, yeah, let's not do that, that would make complete sense, but let's not do it, why not? Coming up next as a big mistake in Pokemon Red and Blue was that along with any weaknesses a Pokemon's primary typing has, they were also weak against anything their second typing was weak to, so regardless if their first type resisted it. So a good example of this was Venusaur, who is a grass and poison type, but in Generation 1 Pokemon Red and Blue it was weak to ground, even though obviously grass resists ground and poison is super effective against it, so in today's games it is neutral. But back in Generation 1 in Red and Blue, it just cancelled out the weakness, the resistance in grass, and so it was just still super effective, which is kind of crazy. I didn't actually know about that. I completely forgot about it until I was actually researching things for this video, but that was a pretty cool thing that I just found out, but kind of crazy if you think about it. Coming up next as another mistake in Pokemon Red and Blue is that one-hit KO moves like Fissure and Horn Drill and moves like that are practically useless because accuracy is based off of speed in Pokemon Generation 1, and only mostly slow Pokemon learn these moves, such as Rhydon learning Horn Drill and Nidoking learning Horn Drill and stuff like that. Nidoking probably was one of the fastest Pokemon, and you usually had to use items to allow it to hit every time. And the weird thing is the PP was also very low for these moves, so as well as being barely ever being able to hit them because you're obviously using a slow Pokemon, and like I said, accuracy is based off of speed, it was it's kind of weird. Surely you'd have like 30 PP on those moves. I know it is a one-hit KO move, so it can obviously kill a Pokemon in one hit, but because the Pokemon using them were so slow, it's kind of weird that they would barely ever connect. Just another weird mistake that they did have in Pokemon Red and Blue. Coming next as another mistake in Pokemon Red and Blue were that critical hit ratios were also based off of speed. So like we have just talked about accuracy being based off of speed, so was critical hit ratios. So Pokemon like Gengar and Alakazam and Pokemon like that such as Kabutops were insanely broken because they were all very fast Pokemon, and so they were hitting critical hits like bang, like every single day. Like Kabutops using Slash, that was ridiculously broken. You'd be hitting a critical hit like pretty much at least 1 out of every 2 attacks, so you'd just be swiping through the Elite Four or whatever gym leader or whatever like that. It'd just be ridiculously broken, and so of course that is another mistake in Pokemon Red and Blue. Coming in as another mistake in Pokemon Red and Blue is that knocking out a Pokemon or sub with Hyper Beam gives you no recharge next turn. So you could literally just spam Hyper Beam if it was going to kill it, and obviously if you had like a Pokemon like Dragonite coming through with Hyper Beam, you could just literally spam Hyper Beam against anything and not having to recharge. You just completely break like every team. It just broke the game. Similar to how Wrap broke the game as well, because Wrap and Fire Spin completely broke the game, because back in those days, if you use Wrap, nowadays it just hurts the Pokemon at the end of like the turn, but in those days, nah, that weren't happening. It literally stopped you from attacking, so Ekans was incredibly broken, Dratini was incredibly broken. You use Wrap and then the Pokemon couldn't attack until it was freed, and then once it frees itself, you just use Wrap again, and it's just a constant cycle of destruction. These Pokemon that could learn Wrap, even though it's an awful move in today's games, it was absolutely broken back in Pokemon Red and Blue. Okay, so coming in next is another huge mistake in Pokemon Red and Blue, where the critical hits ignore stat buffs. So that meant that making your buffed up attacks do more damage than crits. So crits didn't get scaled up like they do in today's games, so it was kind of weird if you think about it. But another big mistake in Pokemon Red and Blue. Another mistake back in Pokemon Red and Blue, which I actually didn't know about until researching this video, is that badly poison turns into normal poison if switched out. So if obviously a Pokemon uses Toxic on you, you become badly poisoned. But if you switched out and then switched it back in, it would just turn to normal poison. And obviously Toxic poison builds up every turn, it takes more health off every single turn, whereas normal poison just takes off the same amount every turn. So that's kind of weird. Like obviously if you're Toxic, you switch out, you switch back in, you're only taking normal poison damage. I didn't know that. I don't think I'd ever tried that. I think I'd ever noticed that. But a really weird mistake if you think about it back in Pokemon Red and Blue. Coming in next as another mistake in Pokemon Red and Blue was that removing a status effect like Paralysis or Burn mid-battle has no effect on your debuff stats, meaning you're still stuck with the effects until you switch out. So say Paralysis slows your Pokemon down obviously, or Burn halves your attack. If you use a Paralysis heal on a Pokemon to remove the Paralysis, it would still be that slow until you switch it out and switch it back in. Again, another thing that I never actually noticed, but still kind of crazy and another big mistake if you think about it. So coming in next as our 15th and final mistake back in Pokemon Red and Blue is similar to Lickitung and Charizard not learning simple moves that they easily should have, and it is actually Tangela who couldn't learn Vine Whip. Now if you just think about it, Tangela is literally the Vine Pokemon. He's made up of vines, so him not being able to use Vine Whip in Pokemon Red and Blue is just crazy. Fortunately though for this Pokemon, they did correct that in Pokemon Yellow. They must have saw how silly that was. So they did correct that in, like I say, Pokemon Yellow. But in Pokemon Red and Blue, this Pokemon couldn't learn Vine Whip, which is insane. It's like humans not being able to breathe or something. I don't know, it's just stupid. But that does finish off today's video. So with that wraps up the video. I really hope you guys enjoyed it as much as I did making it. If you did enjoy the video though, please leave a like, I'd really appreciate it. Like I said at the start of the video, I would also love to hear your guys' opinions too on this subject, so be sure to leave them in the comment section below. I have a couple top 5s coming onto a screen in a second, so be sure to give them a watch if you have the time. And also, subscribe if you like my content. That's everything from me though, so thanks for watching guys, have an amazing day, and I'll see you in the next video.